I love going to the grocery store during this season because if you walk down the candy aisle, which I rarely do, I swear, it's filled with pastel colors for Easter. Don't you love that? The pinks and the yellows and the sky blues and the mint greens, M&Ms in those colors. I mean, how good is that? Love that. And you see people gathering them up, and you can just picture like what my mom used to do at Easter time. She had this big platter, decorative platter that she'd cover with Easter grass, and she'd put all these beautiful pastels out, and we'd color eggs and put them out there, and then we'd all have baskets. And it was kind of like, stockings at Christmas. Easter morning, you get up, and your basket is filled with all kinds of fun things. That was good. Those were the days. And there's other ways to celebrate Easter as well. If we take a look at the reason for Easter and where it all got started, it comes back to a spiritual belief system that maybe you were raised in. Who here went to church and, had the traditional Easter experience in church when you were kids? Yeah. And the traditional Easter experience in church wasn't about the Easter bunny. It was about the crucifixion, resurrection of Jesus. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, so right now we started the Lenten season on Ash Wednesday, which is a day where some Christians, probably mostly in the Catholic tradition, go to church on Ash Wednesday, and what happens? You get a little mark, a smudge of ash on your forehead. Who knows or can remember what that was about or why you do that? Say it loud. Dust to dust, the mortality of the body. And yet we are spirit. Gosh, there's so much I could say here. Okay, so it was just a reminder, too, of at that point, if you believe this, it's about, things that you need to repent for, sins that you've committed, asking for forgiveness. And it's entering into the Lenten season for 40 days, preparing for Easter. It's honoring Jesus's life, his sacrifice. At one point he sacrificed 40 days in the wilderness, fasting, and then, of course, sacrificed his life. According to the gospel stories, he was crucified on the cross and rose again. And the church has a story behind that story that you and I were born in original sin, and then the only way we could experience our oneness with God was to accept that gift of Jesus' life, that atonement, from that which or who was the only Son of God. This is the story that comes out of the Gospels. And I got to give Paul, the Apostle Paul, a lot of credit for what churches teach today. And I kind of wanted to take us back to where that story came from today, which comes out of the book of Genesis and about the beginning of humankind. We teach often from the scriptures in Genesis that say when God created mankind, humankind, male and female, that we were made in the image and likeness of God. Now, is God a body or is God spirit? Jesus said God is spirit. So if we're made in the image and likeness of God, then we are spirit. And then there's this story of the Adam and Eve, the first male and female. This is what we look at in Unity as an allegory, where this male and female came into being, and God placed them in this beautiful garden called Eden. And in this garden, all that we could possibly need is provided for us and free to live in bliss. And we only had one rule. What was the rule? Don't eat that apple. Okay, yeah. That tree had a name. It was the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Look at you Bible students. Yeah, don't touch that one. So, of course, we did. We ate of that tree. Our eyes were open to see that we were naked. God found out, and what happened next? They got cast out of the garden to spend the rest of their life toiling by the sweat of their brow. And in order for us to experience our oneness with God again, then we needed to accept that story of salvation, seeing Jesus as the only Son of God, that his sacrifice was what allowed us to experience our oneness with God and eternity with God. So That is a literal story out of the scriptures, and Unity interprets the Bible not literally for the most part. We do see some of it as history. We do believe that Jesus was born and died and probably on a cross. But we also look at this story metaphysically, which is beyond the literal, and look at the place like the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve as aspects of our own consciousness. So you've probably heard this story if you've been here a while, but we're going to go through it again because it doesn't hurt to remember in this Easter season. We look first at this Garden of Eden as a state of consciousness. So imagine that you and I were spiritual beings in a spiritual dimension that you may want to call heaven, where it's pure bliss. And this is a story that I actually take literally. I actually believe literally that I am a spiritual being, and prior to having this human experience, I was in that spiritual dimension, and I still am. I just don't remember it. And in that spiritual dimension, I am in that state of bliss, which might be a symbol, or Eden might be a symbol for that state of bliss, where my consciousness is one with the consciousness of God, because there is only one mind, one omniscience, one all-knowing, and I share in that. So my spiritual self is one in the mind of God. What's that song that you sing, that we're not just a drop in the ocean, we're all the ocean in a drop. We're all of God in a unique, individualized expression of God as spirit, not just when we get into the body, but as spirit. This is who we are. And as we are living in this state of pure bliss and love and divine wisdom, creative in nature, no limits on our creative abilities, the spiritual, if we even have a body, that spiritual light that we are is perfect and whole. There's no flaws in us. And what I think happened here at this point was that our spirit, God expressing uniquely as all of us, was seeking to know itself even more deeply than it can know in the state of perfection. What would it be like if we weren't perfect? What would it be like if we weren't pure love? What would it be like if we didn't always have all our answers handy, that we couldn't read each other's mind? What would it be like if sometimes our body failed and it wasn't pure life? What would it be like if we sometimes got in arguments and we could no longer really truly experience pure love and pure life and pure wisdom? What would that be like? And I think Divine Mind thought this is a way to expand and evolve the Christ consciousness. This is the way for the mind of God and all that is to know more of itself by experiencing what it is not in its nature. Are you buying any of this yet? Okay, so let's create an environment where we can experience what we are not, because we can't experience it in this spiritual dimension. So voila, big bang, here comes the universe, and it is an environment that has limitations. And as soon as we get, as spirit, choosing to come into this limited universe, we come into these bodies that are very limited, and wow, this is different. This is hard. We start to feel limited by the physical body, where it gets sick. What the heck is this all about? And where is my pure life? We start to experience separation from each other, because once you get into that body, that veil just comes right down. You can't remember your oneness with each other. All you can feel is, I'm in this thing and you're in that thing. I can't read your mind. We're definitely separate. I may or may not like you depending on how you behave. And, I'm having to scrap, around to find my good and hopefully earn enough money to be able to provide for my food. Wasn't like that in the spiritual dimension, but hey, we forgot that. We don't remember what that was like. We're just trying to get along with this physical dimension. And it's not all that easy. That body has a very thick veil that comes down between our spiritual remembering and our human consciousness. So we're in this state of amnesia. We're feeling separate from one another. We're feeling probably lost and not really being able to access what we need in every moment. And every once in a while, a button gets pushed in us. You know what I'm talking about? When somebody looks at you wrong or takes something from you or does something to irritate you, those buttons get pushed, and out comes this behavior, this protective behavior, this judgmental behavior, all part of the human self. Because, yes, our spirit is still fully present in this. It's dancing with one foot in the physical dimension and one foot in the spiritual dimension, but it's usually giving way to the physical. It's the dominant energy in this physical dimension. And so we're not necessarily learning or hearing from our higher self. Our sense consciousness tries to tell us what is real. Sense consciousness has to do with, well, this is true because I saw it with my eyes, or this is true because I heard it with my ears. I tasted it, I touched it, I smelled it. That's what makes it true. And at some point, I'm asking you, as I start this message series, I'm asking you to know that's the way it is in this physical universe and learning how to see what the gift is in it. See what the buttons have to offer you before you get to that state of bliss again. And imagine that this is going to go back and forth throughout our life and be okay with that. Buttons get pushed, and then because of who we really are, we hopefully awaken and we start to become our normal higher self again. So, this doesn't necessarily come easily to our consciousness because of that veil. So I wanted to share a story with you from Christian Sundberg. Up here on the screen, let's show his book. I ran across him on YouTube, and he was being interviewed, and his experience was that he had a difficulty in his life. He went through a lot of physical pain and found his way out of that. And he began to meditate on a regular basis. And during his meditative practice, his veil began to thin. And he started to have memories of who he was before he came into the body. And although he's not like completely open and conscious of who he is as a spiritual being, he gained a lot, and he wrote a book that I'm just really enjoying. It's called A Walk in the Physical. And he tells the story that I just want to share just a snippet with you about his experience. He said, when we come to have a physical lifetime, we have to accept a set of consciousness constraints that we as humans call simply the veil. So in other words, can't really get to it in our knowingness that we are spiritual beings. There's these consciousness constraints. In order to have the full physical experience, we need to forget all of everything else that we are. The veil is the spiritual mechanism, or perhaps even consciousness technology, for all you techies out there, by which this is accomplished. It's like a great cloak that passes over your being, cutting you off experientially from your connection to all knowledge. Think spiritual mind. And veiling the conscious awareness of your living connection with all things, veiling your awareness of your oneness, like we know in the spiritual dimension. From a state of both simultaneous individuality and blissful oneness, that's who we were beforehand, you collapse into individuality only. You plummet from an extremely high vibration to an extremely low vibration as you interface into the physical reality system. After I accepted the veil, I experienced that knowingness to be cut off, and I suddenly felt separate, dark, and alone. Metaphorically, for me, it was like going from rich, vibrant connectedness straight into the airless, cold, and desolate vacuum of space. So he remembers that experience of being in spirit and choosing to go here, to be with this family, to live in this area, to get set up in such a way that he would have this experience and learn from this, and then change who he was. And he's continuing to go through the changing process like all of us, if you're willing to take it on. So we start with this veil that comes over our awareness. It's pretty darn thick, and it's allowing us this process of remembering who we really are. And every time we have a button pushed where we don't have as much money as we want and we go into worry, or we go into a physical challenge and we feel frustrated and even afraid of where it might take us, when we go through a relationship conflict and we feel hurt and separate and alone, all of those are those buttons being pushed, and they are why we came here, so that we could feel what it's like to be separate from love, to be separate from a divine knowing that always has the right answer for everything. So those experiences that we have in the physical are actually not only helping our spiritual being understand itself more deeply and what its perfections are all about, but these human experiences are going into the subconscious, and that's the veil, really, that subconscious layer that we're usually not consciously aware of, but it is very active in this life that we're experiencing. So every time we have one of those not love, not provided for, not healthy, not understanding experiences, those create those emotional feelings, and it all goes into the subconscious as a memory that creates habits and ways of being and then keeps repeating itself. So every time somebody out here pushes one of those buttons, it automatically pulls out that response again. And over again, your higher self is getting to feel what it's like to not know love and to not know supply. Are you following this? Okay. Well, at some point, we get really good at defining ourselves as not spirit. Actually, from the beginning. Probably when we're like 2, 3, 4, and we're starting to talk, and 5 years old, we might even be saying things that said, when I was in heaven, it was this way. Have you ever heard that about little kids telling those stories? And then suddenly 6, 7, 8, they start to forget. But from that point, we start taking on a name that means something to our humanness. We take on a body, and it has a definition for how we should be. We take on possessions, and we say, that's me. Or we take on roles in our life. What in our family, we have a role. In our school system, in our workplace, in our friendships, we have roles. That's me, none of which are perfect, none of which are whole, none of which have provision automatically, none of which really know what to do. See, all that humanness is giving us an opportunity to know what it's like to not be spirit. And in that form, we begin to make assumptions that you can probably all relate to. Here are some of them. Possessions are what will make me happy. And this material world is the only thing that's real. Even though science is now telling us that there is no matter, that everything is energy, we have convinced ourselves that only what we can touch is real. And since we can't touch God, we're not so sure about that. But if God is real, God is judging. God is punishing. I'm not worthy in God's eyes. I'm unlovable in God's eyes. These are stories that we learn and make real for ourselves, and they become to be our nature and how we express, so that we get up in the morning afraid of the world, afraid of what it has to offer us. I'm sure you can relate to this, unless you're starting to do your work. And we get to the point where you feel like, we get to a certain age. We're in our group, monthly group now, Aging with Spirit. And we're addressing that idea that death comes sooner than we are prepared for, and getting ready for it doesn't feel good. There's all kinds of things that we have against getting old. So these are all stories that we tell ourselves. And probably one of the most common that we're unaware of is that duality is reality, meaning separation is reality. And in that limited feeling, all the while, here's our higher self, experiencing what our human self is experiencing, but not buying into it. Our higher self knows who we really are. Our higher self is still one in consciousness with the mind of God. Our spirit is whole and complete. It's creative. All those 12 spiritual powers we talk about, that's who we are as spirit. And we're learning from this human experience, but that's not the end of what we're here to do. We're here to have that experience of lack and limitation and then let the higher self come through and show us otherwise. Because every time you have one of those lack moments in your life, that's your gift for being here. That's why you came, so that you can take a moment and go, oh, this is what it's like. This is what it's like to feel alone. This is what it's like to feel judged. This is what it's like to not have enough. And I am not that. I am spirit. I am eternal. I am the Christ expressing. All that God is available to me still. So we're not just here to punish ourselves through these difficult experiences. We're here to have them, which will then throw up a creative idea if we allow it. If we keep our minds and hearts open to spirit, then we're going to access those ideas about how to move beyond those limitations, to let our higher self be the one in charge of our life. Can you see how that might be a fun experience? How the pain, the button gets pushed, but then we think, wait, who am I? What's available to me? Where is my bliss? I am one with God. I am not in limitation, but we have to know that in order for it to be that in us. And we look to Jesus as our way shower because he came to know that about himself. Whether he knew it from the minute he was born and he maintained that knowingness his entire life, or he came into that knowingness. I mean, there are stories in the scriptures that show him with his buttons being pushed, when he's in the temple and he's knocking over tables because he doesn't think that's right. Or when he's just like fed up to here with all these lack of faith disciples. How long am I going to have to put up with you people? Okay, look it up. That's what he said. How long am I going to have to put up with you people? So that might have been a human day. Might have had a button push there. And something, our co-founder, Charles Fillmore, wrote many books, one of which was called The Atom-Smashing Power of Mind. That sounds exciting, doesn't it? All right, so one of the things he says up here on the screen, the consciousness of the Lord Jesus Christ is of limitless life, strength, power, wisdom, love, and substance that are everywhere present, always present. And that name, Jesus Christ, is the name we use when he was expressing as the Christ. It wasn't his last name. It was the Christ as an individualized expression of God. And we believe that he expressed that fully by the end of his life. And then he tried to teach us to do likewise. He told us to follow him. He told us not to think of ourselves as born to a physical father and mother. Call no man on earth father, your creator, your source is of spirit, and therefore you are of spirit. So even though you're living in a human body and there was a human father and mother involved, it's not who you are. So don't get caught up in that illusion. And when he taught people to pray, he said, our Father who art in heaven, not my Father, and I'm gonna, ask him to bless you on my behalf. He didn't say my, he said our Father. We are all siblings. We are all the essence of spirit. And we're here to remember that and feel that connection, that essence of God. He prayed this beautiful prayer in the book of John that asked that we could pretty much awaken to the fact that we are one, as he knew he was one with God. Well, why would he pray that unless he knew that we already are one? We already are that presence. When the Pharisees heard him talking about being God and giving him a hard time, he said, what's wrong with you people? I'm sure that was his literal words. What's wrong with you people? If you look at your scriptures, you'll see back in the Psalms, it says, I said, ye are gods, and all of you sons of the Most High. All of you, sons of the Most High, not just one. So we don't look at Jesus as the great exception. We look at Jesus as the great example. Okay? Is this making sense? I know we have a lot of new to Unity folks here that have been here just a little while, so this is probably a lot to take in, so just keep breathing. So let's continue on with what Charles Fillmore says. He said, the method by which Jesus evolved from sense consciousness to God consciousness was first the recognition of the spiritual selfhood and a constant affirmation of its supremacy and power. Jesus said, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. By the power of his word, he penetrated deeper into omnipresence and tapped the deepest resources of his mind. By the power of his what? Word. Affirmations. This is why we speak affirmations. This is because it's allowing us to dig deeper into the resources of divine mind, where he released the light, life, and substance of spirit, which enabled him to get the realization that wholly united his consciousness with the Father mind, where he went from human consciousness, subconsciousness thinking, to superconscious mind, and asked us to follow. So who are we? We're spiritual beings having this human experience. Our natural state is not this body. It's not our money. It's not our family that we were born into or how much education we've gotten at college or no college. Our nature is divine mind, divine intelligence. Our nature is infinite life. Our nature is creativity and love. That's who we are. And we left the garden, we left the spiritual dimension on purpose, by choice, to have this human experience. And 95% of the time, that human experience is winning when we're letting our subconscious choose our actions for us. And the fact that you're sitting here, the fact that you're listening to my voice somewhere in the world right now, makes me think that you're ready to give up 95% to the subconscious and maybe take some of that back to your higher self, your superconscious mind. And little by little, we are awakening to who we are as that presence. But never try to give up all that this human experience offers, because it's why you came. Don't forget that. While we're experiencing all these difficulties, your soul is expanding in understanding of who you are as a spiritual being. I believe, and we teach in Unity, that God evolves, that we are all God evolving. And the reason that there's so many of us is because this infinite presence of God can be all of us at once, evolving in different ways. And everything that you're experiencing on earth is contributing to the whole of the one. Oh, they're happy about that. That just, woo! Even when there's other spiritual beings like you and me who are not in the body right now, they are experiencing what you are experiencing. You are contributing to the whole. Okay, I feel that fun. That feels fun. All right, good. My mom, yay! There's mom up there going, yay! Okay, stop that, kitty. All right, so if we came with a full knowing of who we are, we wouldn't get the benefit of it. You see what I'm saying? Once we truly awoke to who we were, nothing would be a threat to us, and we wouldn't learn what it's like to not be loved, because we would only know love. And no button could set us back. So I'm inviting you to find the joy when the button is pushed. And know that there is bliss available, and you have the consciousness to choose that. That's your conscious mind, the one that knows that you're sitting here right now or listening to me right now. That's the part of you that can choose which way you want to be looking at life. So feel the gratitude for this is what it's like, and then remember who you are as a spiritual being and what your potential really is. And use that creative nature, because that's another reason why I think we came, is to create more than we can in the spiritual dimension. We can create a whole lot more here in the physical dimension. I know that there are people that are just waiting with bated breath to get the heck out of here. I know a lot of Christian friends who are just waiting to get to heaven where all their good resides. But I'm telling you, this is where it is. This is where we should be excited to be. This is where people are in line on the other side waiting to get in here, because this is where we evolve and experience more of who we are as an infinite being. And when we use the word infinite, we mean infinite, not limited, no end to it. This is going to go on forever. Let's make it a fun experience instead of just a drudge. You did not come here to be in a drudge. You came here to have a button pushed, but then to wake up to who you are and create something new out of that. And every time you feel love, pure love, every time you get an idea to make something better, every time you have a deep understanding of how something works, that's your spirit. That's your higher self coming through and leading you towards that blissful state. And I'm not saying sit around and look and wait for those moments of buttons being pushed, but just know when they come that there is another end to this spectrum that we have a choice to walk into, if we will. This is what Suzanne Giesemann, she found a way to get past the veil, so to speak, and to hear from the other side some guidance. And this is what she shared. You're here to remember yourself as part of a system of lower beings and higher beings, where lower and higher simply refer to the level of awareness. Regain awareness that there is one awareness having the experience of itself as all of this, and all will flow with joy. Maybe a little bit of button pushing, but that's for good.
What does that mean?
John, has anybody ticked you off? Okay, that's a button being pushed. You know how when sometimes we push a button and the garage door goes down? It's really loud. That's kind of what our buttons push. When somebody behaves in a way that you don't like, it's like somebody pushing your garage door and your wall goes down and you separate yourself and you sit back in that garage and you just stew. And you feel anger, you feel frustration, or maybe you feel loneliness, or maybe you feel hurt. All the things that are not God, not good. And we feel those all day, every day, don't we? So you're sitting here because you want an option. I hope this has given you an option. And for the next 2 weeks, we're going to keep talking about options and why we're here. So I hope you'll come back for that. But for now, let's stop and meditate, because that's the other way to get where we're going, shall we? Whew! So thank you, Spirit. Just thank you. Let's just take a moment to feel that oneness. Allow ourselves to move into that blissful state. No matter how many problems that are going on in your life right now and how many buttons are being pushed, we take this moment to just breathe. Let's take that deep breath and release that heaviness on purpose. Let's consciously choose to release that. Deep breath in and release it. One more breath in and release. Sense your physical body. Just scan it from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. Notice if anything wants your attention. If there's any source of tension there, just breathe in life, the divine idea of life, the life that is whole, calm, soothing, enlivening. Breathe that into that area of your body. Breathe in that light of spirit. Feel a sense of gratitude for your body and all that it gives to you every day. We thank you, body, for the ability to move, to carry, to think. To touch and taste and smell, to see and hear. Thank you, body. I'm grateful as a spiritual being to have you as my home. To every cell in my body, I say thank you for supporting me in this journey. And I open my mind to the state of my life now. Allow your thoughts to go to one thing that seems to have your attention right now in your life. It might be about your finances, your health, a relationship, a decision. What is it that has a pull on your attention? Is there a button being pushed that's creating a negative emotion? We thank you, physical universe, for allowing this experience so that our spirit may know what we are not. We are not hate or anger. We are not sickness or death. We are not lack or limitation. We are spirit. And in this moment, I allow myself to know I and the Father are one. That all that God is can be as me. I choose to look at this one experience that has my attention right now with new eyes, spiritual eyes. I judge not by appearance, but by the invisible power of love, of wisdom, of substance, of life. Even now, I know which of those divine qualities would suit me best to transform this experience into bliss. Just hold that divine idea in your mind for a moment and imagine what life would be like if you were living as life, perfect and whole. If you were living through divine wisdom, perfect love, a flow of generous abundance. Be that now in your heart and know that this is the truth of you. In all things, we give thanks for this precious opportunity to know the truth of who we are. And we allow this truth to set us free for as long as we exist. Thank you, God. Amen.